Welcome to the class. Let's start the new topic called data schema. So if you see the syllabus, right, we've been talking about for a long time. So we are on this part, data schema. Probably I'll try to see if I can cover access control also, but yeah, data schema is the main focus for today's class. Okay. Now, what is data schema? So I think application, this whole application of service now the platform, right? It has its own inbuilt database. And it will, of course, RDBMS because everybody has to use RDBMS nowadays because of a lot of strong points it has, right? The entire relationships between different components, different tables, fields, everything. That is where you have this inbuilt database in ServiceNow, which helps you to use multiple tables. You can select records, and you can enter some records in those tables. So whatever we are doing, for example, if I were to go to this incident table, what I was showing you earlier, then if I go to this list, right? So this is a list of incident table, and these are the records under that table, right? And these are the fields in that table. So whatever in the header here, number, open, short, description, caller, actual, start, actual, and priority, state category, these are all the fields in that particular table. These are the records, individual records. So this whole entry is a record. This whole entry is a record. This whole entry is a record. That is why we say a table is a collection of records. A table is a collection of records. This is where you are, because whatever, so for example, let me just go back to the sheet, and these, for example, I'm just talking about something called I have to store users in my system. Now for storing users in my system, I have to create a table called user table, for example. In that user table, I'll have to create so many headers. Now all of these headers, if I say one name of one person is EBC, name of second person is XYZ, third person is PQR, right? And I'm saying his mobile number is 9999999888888, and this is 77777, right? Date of birth, anything. I mean, I can put first 10 1990, second Feb 1991. I can say third Feb 2000. Whatever, I mean, it's just random data. So I'm just selecting city as Lucknow. Here I'm selecting city as Pune, Bangalore, right? Address, I'm saying whatever, EBC, PQR, right? And then here I'm putting any email, right? And this is test 1, test 2. I'm putting 2 more emails here, PQR at gmail.com. ABCD at yahoo.com. Anything for that matter. What I'm trying to explain you is all of these are actually called as fields. All of this section is called as fields, which means there are those columns in those tables against which we have to put a value. So for example, I am asking you ABC has what address, then it will be ABC PQR, right? These are, and this entire thing is a record. This entire thing is a record. Record 1, record 2, and record 3. You can call it record. This is record, right? Record 1, record 2, record 3. These are all the fields. You can have n number of fields, whatever you want. And this is called as record. And the combination of these records, which have all those fields, is called as a table. That is the whole concept of a table. I think it is a normal concept in database also. It is not something called as ServiceNow concept. It is just that I'm telling you that this is how you kind of structure any table. You have rows and columns inside it. And once you can create an entry for a record. So whenever you want to enter this record in a system, right, then you will have to go to, for example, if I go to, in this case, if I go to incident, now whatever I'm going to fill in this particular form. So this is form, we have understood. The previous one was a list view. If I make any entry here and I submit this record, it will create one more record on the table, isn't it? Test 19th March. Submit. So this is the one we have just created. So this is the entire record which has been created in the same table. Now I could have filled any fields. I could have filled any field on this report. I could have filled this. I could have filled this. I could have made this mandatory, non-mandatory. That is completely as per the requirement of the business. That you may want priority as a mandatory field. You want category as a mandatory field. That's completely up to us. So the idea I'm trying to convey here is that once you submit values on a particular form for a table, it creates a record in the system. So this is a collection of all these records are called as table, right? So if I, for example, go here again, I can fill any values here. I can always go to the record will be updated further, and then I can see those values in the records, right? Now, this is the part we've already seen. Now let's understand how ServiceNow has those table structures. So if I were to type the word tables here, you see this here, system definition, tables and columns. These are the two areas which you have to actually look into that, okay, what tables do I have? How are they related to each other? That concept we'll understand right now. And there is one more concept called dictionary. And this is where you define a particular table. This is where you define all the fields of a particular table. Now let me go back to that view called tables. So all of these tables you're talking about, incident is a table, problem is a table, change is a table, notification is a table. So wherever you see number of records, whenever we check all those records, at that time we can see that these are the tables. So if you remember in one of the initial classes, we have come to this particular page and we have seen how many tables do we have by default, right? So because I told you one more thing is that I had installed some plugins on the top base version of ServiceNow. That is why I have more tables in my case as compared to that of your case. So if you go to your own instance, you might see less number of tables. You might see more number of tables depending on the number of plugins you have actually introduced. But I think even on the base version, they have around 5,000 tables as a matter of fact. Right? That is one thing. So this is where you see the table. Now, if I were to show you that, okay, what is this concept of extends table? So if you remember, we again talked about the same concept. I'm just trying to correlate those things again. Task table is one of the very, very important table in ServiceNow. And based on that table, we have a lot of tables which are getting extended, right? Which means there are so many tables right now which extend task table. And when I say this word, I mean, maybe change request extends task table, which means what? It simply means that whatever attributes or columns you have, or fields you have defined in this particular table, they will be applicable here any which ways. And this table will have its own fields, some more fields which are making it different from task table, but then the base table we're using is this task table, right? And on top of that, I can add some more fields to my table to give a flavor to that particular table. That's the whole idea. So this is where you see task table we're talking about, right? And you can see, I think most of our tables, for example, incident, this is also coming from a task table, right? If I just to check problem. This is also coming from task table. Change we have already seen. There are so many tables. I think we have already seen there are around 100 plus tables which are extended from the task table. SC request, right? This is also coming from task table. So the idea is this is where you can check that which table is extended from which table. That gives you a very clear understanding. Okay, that because I have extended this from task table, which means I can see all those forms and fields, all those fields and attributes in my table automatically. So if you define a new table, for example, what happens is see this behavior. So far, so good. No question on that part, right? Right. So we'll talk about this part a little later because this is a concept of scope versus not scope. So here you define something called under which application scope I'm defining it. Right now, I'm just taking it the default global, whatever we're talking about, right? So label is that user-friendly name with which you understand the table. For example, I say training. I can you can see this name automatically came up, and the name came up U_training. When you define anything in global scope, which is applicable for everybody, in that case, the prefix changes to U underscore, which also tells you that this is a custom table. When I say custom table, this is something you have created on your own in your instance. It was not given by ServiceNow for that matter. It was not in the base version and you have created it yourself. So in that case, whenever you install a new module, new application, for that, all the tables of that application will come in the system, right? That is how the behavior is. If today I don't have, for example, I don't have virtual agent in this particular instance, and if I want to enable it, then whatever tables are representative of virtual instances will automatically be pulled in here. That is what a plugin actually does. A plugin creates table, it creates some records, it creates some relationships, it creates some indexes. A lot of things it does just to create a table. So the point you have to understand is that if you are creating a table in global instance, then by default, your name will start with U underscore training. How you can change it, I can see you can change it, but then that is fine. Let's go ahead with what is available online, right? Now, here you can just select add module to menu. Which modules do you want to add to this menu? What is a new menu name training? Create module. We also want to create a mobile module. When is a module, it will come up here in this section also. Otherwise, it will not come up in that section, right? Now, let me, rather than defining each and everything separately, let me go to a table which is already there in system, so that it will be easier for us to kind of have a look at it quickly. Now, we see this here incident, right? For example, if I come on this table, see one by one, this table is taken from task table. This is why this extends table is very important. So which means that whatever attributes I am defining now, they are coming especially by this particular, for this particular table, they have defined these special entries here. Now we see controls, then they've used prefix called INC. 10,000 numbers we have, number 07, we can do that. And we can also create access controls. I'll talk about it a little later, but this is more about that. If you said we talked about security rules and responsibilities, which we give in ServiceNow to people, right? This is how we actually do that. Now, application access, that okay, all application scopes, it is accessible from all application scopes. We can say only for this particular application, we can write, read, create. So this is what is CRUD operations, right? Create, read, update, and delete. We are giving these options to them. Allow access to these tables via configuration. Sorry, via web services. Yes. So backend, if you have a REST API, you can also do that. You can allow configuration on this table. So this is where it looks like. Now, if you are on a particular table, for example, in this case, I am on a table called incident, right? And all of these are variables, all of these are attributes we have defined for this table separately, right? For example, if I were to go to see the number of records here, you have 105 attributes in this particular column, in this incident. This is task table. See, it is not getting extended from any table because it is that grandfather of all the tables types. And you have those 75 values here. So the values we are showing up here are specifically for incident table, which we have kind of created here, right? Now, for example, if I were to create a new attribute on this table, which I'll not do, I'll just tell you how to do that. Then this is where I define the attribute, and I can select what. When I say attribute, I'm talking about a field. So I'm talking about any of those things, right? So here we are talking for a case that every field, if you see here, it is a different type of field. For example, this is a free text. Name is a free text. Mobile number is a numeric field. You cannot put any alphanumeric characters there. Date of birth is a date type field. City is maybe a reference field in this case, because if you have entries of cities in one of a table, you can always refer it. Addresses is a free text field. Email ID will always be in this format. Unless it is in this format, it will not validate that where we have the email ID, right? And remarks are in the free text. So these are different options for which you kind of create a field. Okay, what kind of field do I want? Do I want an integer field? Do I want a number field? Do I want free text field? Do I want a choice field? So whatever type of field you want to choice, you can choose here, right? See this, there are so many options. audio, true, false, calendar date time, choice, color, conditions, currency, data structure, decimal, document ID, domain ID. All of these are different types of fields which you have in ServiceNow already. So you already have 53 types of fields. So a lot of validations, for example, this one, right? IP address field. You have these validations a lot of time use cases that, okay, if I am entering IP address, then the value should be in that same format, x.y.z.a, right? In that case, these are kind of the things which generally help you to define. Phone number also can define. So there are a lot of things you can define out of the box, that which field, price, if I select price, right? I can select a column label, column name for this particular attribute I'm talking about. So when I say label, the label is that particular. So this is called as label, the field I'm defining, right? So label is something which is actually visible to the end user. So sometimes we might define a tough name in the backend for the table, but for the end users who are going to use the system, we always have to define the names which are appealing to them. They can understand the meaning of that name just by reading it. Otherwise, you can add those tool tips. If you remember, we talked about in that case to service catalog, tool tips and example text. All of that you can do. However, the idea is that we should always be defining an easy label for the end user. So I can define the label, I can define the name. Name will be picked automatically. Maximum length also I can define. I can define function, read only, mandatory, display, right? So you can define a lot of things here. Choice list specification. Now I have price. Drop down without none. Drop down with none. You can also add a suggestion here, right? So you can, in this case, you have to specify a default value. So this is the value which gets displayed automatically, even if I have not selected anything. So this is the idea of creating a new column in this particular table. This is how you create a new entry on a table, right? We'll come to that part. Also now, just understand, these are all the fields which are there on the incident table separately, right? Let me just see some second. All right, so we will look at this part little dependent on field. See if this is you have this company. Okay. So the idea is that if I were to, right now I am on table, incident table, I can go to the form from here. I can lay out the form. So we have seen this form design, form layout, everything. The only thing I'm trying to tell you is that you from here also, rather than clicking on the particular form, you click on configure, you can also go to the table and design the form from there itself. The same incident form, the layout list, show form, show list. Now, if you want to see all the records in this list, you can just click on show lists. Then it will show you all the incidents in that particular table. Right? So that is how these, you have these menus which kind of help you here, right? Show list, show schema map. This is where I take some more time to make you understand what it is. But okay, let's understand it right now. Then we'll talk about database later. We are on incident table right now. Okay. Now you can see the columns of this table. So all of these, you can see what does this column mean? Business log, sole type is an integer. Caller is a reference field. When I say reference field, if you remember, we talked about it, that if I am referencing another table for my table, for example, if I have an incident table and I want to say assign to is already there in my user table, right? So I will reference assign to a user table for that particular column. I don't want to create another column for that, right? So this is where the referencing actually works very nicely, right? You can see all the values in this particular. So whatever values we have seen there, they're all here, and it all tells you that wherever we have references. So interesting part is wherever you have references, it is always marked in the red color. So you can see that, okay, this is particular to a reference user table. So it is going to, this particular field is going to user table, for example. Now we have come from incident to user, and it shows you all the relationships with the incident to user. Now let me go back to that view. This. We have the incident table. This is the table which is right now in picture, right? So wherever, now see understand this concept of referenced, referencing, extended, extending, right? These are active, passive kind of stuff. So when I say reference tables, which means the tables wherever incident is being referred, incident table is being referred. This is it. When I say show referencing tables, which means wherever an incident is referring to other tables. So it is like active, passive. In this case, incident is being referred somewhere. In this case, on the incident form, you are referring for other tables. Again, extended tables. We have just seen incident is an extension of task table, right? We have seen that. So this is where it tells you, show me all the tables which are extended from incident. So in this case, it will be showing you all the tables which are extended from incident. And here you will see those tables from which incident has been extended. So in our case, this is your task table. And we have to find out which all tables we have extended from the incident table. So this is the view which gives you a clear understanding. Okay, for example, let us just understand, right? For example, so there is a field called location. Now here, there is a relation between this incident and location table also, right? All of these are kind of tables which change request. So what it tries to say here, that a lot of these tables are related to each other. Now, right, the reason you are seeing task here, because task is a parent table of incident. So what you see here is these are the columns specifically for incident field. All of these 4 columns, they are not in task field, they are only in incident field. And all these columns are in task field, which are also a part of incident field, because incident is an extension of the task table. That is what we have already understood, right? Now, because incident is an extension of the task table, that is why it can use any of these fields. Plus, we have defined these fields also on top of task field to make it usable for the incident form. And here you can see the references. Right? So wherever it is referencing to a particular other table on other field, it can always show you that in the red color. This is how the schema works. And then you can see, okay, for example, I want to see problem. Okay, click on here. So under problem, we have got some more task and user table because they're referencing the problem table right now. So task, again, because problem is also extended table from task. So it has already taken the value which is on the task table, and it has taken some values which are all required only for the case of problem table. And here also we have the references. So this is where you can understand the schema, that what value is being referenced where. Which table is using a source table separately, or is it a standalone table? Is it a standalone table, or is it an extensible table, which is already being extended by somebody, or is it being extended for other tables also? So this is the whole thing of schema map. This is how you can actually look at the things that, okay, which table is linked where. Now coming back to, do you have any questions on that part? Whatever we have seen on the schema map? Okay. From here also, if I were to go here, right, and so I can click on schema map here. So I can go to tables and columns, and here also I can click on schema map and I can read the same area, account. So right now, this is how you read it, right? Account is the table which is being highlighted right now. So we're talking about this table which is highlighted. It's telling you where all it is used and where all it is being referenced already. What are the different tables under which we are actually talking about the account tables. So this gives you that answer that, okay, this color will tell you that these are extended tables. This color will tell you these are extending tables. And we just understood the difference between extended and extending tables. Now, let us go back to one more thing. For example, Any questions on tables and fields area?
No, look, all good.
All good. Okay. Now, if I were to define attributes of a particular thing, this is where I come. So you can see 6 dictionary. Dictionary means this is your main place to do anything. Now, if you were to change a field which is in multiple tables, this is where it can tell you where all I am looking at this field. For example, can you see this? This is table is account relationship, and there are so many fields. For example, if I just do an incident here, so you have 71 fields in the incident form itself, right? Now, if I were to change any particular field on the incident form, for example, I say close code string. This is already, and you can also see those reference type, right? From here, you can always find out what is the type of that field. So these are the types, for example. In this case also, we have so many types. So for example, if somebody tells you tomorrow that I want a currency type field on the incident form, then first of all, you will have to see whether do I have a field this kind of currency field, then I can reuse that field. Why to create a new field? I mean, ServiceNow strictly tells us not to create any new field unless and until it is absolutely essential. That should also come with clear application understanding. Why do you want to do that? Because if you already have a table, if you already have a field type currency on table, you can reuse this one. There are 2 fields type currency. You can use any one of them, whatever you want to use. That is how things work at the operational level. They'll tell you, okay, I want this field on this form. Is it possible? You go, okay, let me just see. First, tell them about these fields, and then we'll see whether it is possible or not possible. Now here, for example, I have chosen to configure this resolution code label, right? And I'm saying this is the field on that incident form, which is called as resolution code. Now I've come here, it is a string field, I can see, drop down with none, and default, there is no default value here, right? This is resolution code, right? And I can show table and advanced view, right? I can go to the table also, directly to the table where it is being referred. The good part is you cannot change it from here, right? So because it is already at an incident level, so you can't. So whatever changes you want to do will be at this level. Now, if I make it mandatory, for example, as of today, it is not mandatory. If I make it mandatory, it will become mandatory on the form. I can define the maximum length also. I can change the string type. If, for example, if I do not want to create a string type field for this, I just want to use a choice type field, I can do that as well. Right. So there are a lot of requirements which tells you, okay, this is where you have to, I want a particular field on this form, which should refer to this field. So this is where it becomes all the more important. How are these different fields referenced, and from which is that area under which I can see those things. So nobody remembers all these things because there are so many tables, so many fields, you can't remember it, right? It comes with experience. However, this is more to understand where exactly do you need to go if you were in some situation. That's the whole idea, right? And if you can see what all things are there for this particular field, close code, we have a access control called incident close code. We have 7 choices here. These are 7 choices of that particular field. I can add one more choice if I want to. I can add a choice here. Nobody want to stop me. I can delete any choice from here. Nobody want to stop me. Right? I can make all of them inactive. Right now, they're all true. Because inactive is false. When inactive is false, which means they're all true. They're already visible. I want to make it active as true. So I can just remove them, right? So I'll not be able to see those fields in that case. Attributes. There, I mean, edge injection enabled true for this field. Does not really matter at this point of time. Labels. What is the label of this field? I can change the label. Label is resolution code. I can change the label of the field. I can do anything for using reporting. So this is where the concept of dictionary works. That where do I need to go to make any changes to the field? And you can see this incident is this, application is global. So it is getting changed at the global scope itself. Now, there is a field, for example, which is defined at a local level. You cannot go and update it in global level. Similarly, if there's a field defined at a global level, you will not be able to update it in local level, right? So wherever it has been defined initially, only at that level you have to change that field. So it gives you a warning. System will give you a warning that okay, this you cannot edit it here. You have to go to that scope and then only you have to edit it. So they kind of give those warnings to you also in terms of understanding where do you need to make changes to edit that field. That's the whole idea, right? So yeah, dictionaries we have seen, tables and columns we have seen. So I think we have understood concept of records, even the fields, right? And then there are relationships. There is one thing called as number maintenance under system definition. Now here, you can configure the numbers. Okay, for example, let me see this incident. For incident table, the numbers are configured by INC. I want to change this scheme, I can. I want to change total number of incidents, maximum report, I can change. Number of digits, I can change. So everything related to numbers schema of any table is changed from this area. Okay, field name level, we understood. Now, if I were to, for example, go to this record, but this is a record in, right? So not in this one. Let me go to a record on incident table. I think we have talked about sys ID, did we? I remember that we have talked about sys ID, right? So if I were to open any record in system, it will always have a unique sys ID. For example, if I open this record, so this, what you see here on top, this part, this is your 32-digit unique identifier, which is called as sys ID. So for any record in ServiceNow, you'll have a unique sys ID associated to that record. This is how it works. So it is very important to understand this concept, right? Reference fields, I think. So all those fields we have here, for example, this is referencing to a user table, right? Even this is referencing to a particular group table. So wherever you have this is called as reference lookup. This icon is called as reference lookup. So, and when I define anything which is reference field, which means we are referring to any other table in system, and from that table, we are going to get this particular name assigned to the user table, assignment group is a group table, service is a service offering table, service table, this is service offering table, this is CI table, this is again. So this is a very common thing in ServiceNow or any relational database system, to be honest, that you'll always have references in one table to other table for particular fields. And this is what you actually see in that schema map. Okay, this is where this field is being referenced from that field. Otherwise, even if you want to go here, you can just see this from here itself, right? It tells you that which table, so it tells you which table I'm referring to. I'm referring to sys user underscore list. This is the table I am referring to. Now, how do we search this table? For example, if I know, let me see all the records in that table, then how do we do that? This is interesting stuff. Sys, then I have just copy pasted that particular thing from here, whatever the table name was. I did not know the table name myself, but if I were to know that, I can just click on that reference. I can search the table and removing this underscore list and typing it like dot and list capital. It will open all the data in the next table. So I have 801 users already in this table. Now I know that which table they're referring to. This is a very, very interesting way. For example, what we just saw here, right? If I do a dot capital list, it opens in a new view. If I do a dot small list, it will open the records in the same view, in the same frame. It will not open in the new window. Do you see this here? That is an interesting difference. Small list gives you the frame in the same view. Dot capital list gives you the form in a different tab altogether. Now, similarly, you have something called incident.config. These are all shortcuts and hacks, to be honest, which are generally used. Which means now we are at that level where we have defined all the configurations for incident. Now you want to do a troubleshooting, for example, then you want to find out how do I troubleshoot. Something is not happening on incident form. How do I troubleshoot it? Now, this is where you troubleshoot it. You do a config and you see whatever business. Okay, so there are so many business rules. Now you'll filter out the ones which are required for your use case. You will not be looking for a severity kind of priority kind of issue in this cost center notification, for example, right? So that gives you common sense at some point of time after doing things that where should you look into it. But this is that well under which you can go and explore things as per your choices. So you can see business rules here, client scripts here, dictionary entries. These are all those things which we talked about. The attributes on the table, dictionary entry over. This is where we are overriding things. When I'm saying overriding things, is whatever was defined on the parent table, on this child table, we have overridden that. We want it to have a certain different behavior. So for example, on task table, this let's understand this field assigned. The assigned to field on task level, there is no, the only role which we bothered was role ITIL on the task table. But when I'm defining this on the incident table, I have added one more condition there, that it should also have access to SN underscore incident underscore right. Right. This is where you have actually overridden the original entries in the dictionary. Right. So the three areas you have done this already. So sometimes you want a different behavior on a child form, but still you do not want to create a new field because it is already there in the parent one, right? So you just configure it at the table level. That is why it shows you base table also. What is the behavior to that base table? And then you can see all the notifications defined for incident form. You can see this here. This is a very, very good view, which tells you the overall story for a particular form. There are how many UI actions are defined. There are already so many UI actions because of which you're doing things. If you're doing a change request from there, you're creating a request from there. So a lot of things you do, right? By clicking on a button. So these are all those things which you do by clicking a button in system. These are the access controls. We'll talk about them in the next class when we talk about security and access control. That is actually the next chapter for us. So this is where you define the rules and access control or security controls to a particular table, to a particular field, to all the fields on that table. So there are multiple things we'll talk about it in a separate call. I was thinking to do it today, but I think not left with much time. So let's finish what we just started. Then you have all these UI policies which are defined for this incident. We will talk about scripting. So business rules, client scripts, UI policies, data policies are those scripting things which we'll talk about in the next class about scripting. And these are the styles which we are using, right? Kind of HTML pages, which is the background color, all of that. There are no rules right now. There are 3 flows already in the system. They have created those 3 flows. So the idea is this is where you go and define something particular for any. So this concept works for every table. So if I were to go and do the same thing here, and I do change.config for that matter, same behavior I'll have. Oh, sorry, my bad. The table name is change underscore request. This is for change request, same behavior, right? So many business rules, so many client scripts, so many different entries, overrides, notifications, UI actions, access control. So if you were to see anything for a particular table, this is how you have to see that table.config, and you can see all of that, right? We talked about all of this. Then you have relationship between table one to many, many to many. So, and you have something called database view also. Database view, we can, it is not a part of the syllabus as such, but then the idea of database view is, for example, if I were to fetch a report on 2 tables together, right now, if you remember, when we're creating reports, at that time, we just selected one of the table, either incident or problem or change or task, whatever. In case of database view, if you want a report which has a relationship with 2 tables separately, then you have to create a view in system. And for that view, you can generate a report which has attributes of both the tables. That is why you use database. We can talk about it once we have some time after the course, but not at this point of time. I'm just telling you, these are the options for relationships in a table. One to many, we understand already. Many to many, this is something we've studied multiple times in school days also, so I'll not go into that detail. Then, yeah, there is a role called personalized dictionary role, which you need to give if somebody is not admin to see the schema map. So for example, there is a user who tells you that I am not an admin, but I still want to, because I am trying to build a system along with ServiceNow. I just want to see that how are these tables operating with each other? What are those relationships defined between those tables? This is where that schema map that you talked about helps them. So you can give access to schema map also to a normal user just by giving a role called personalized dictionary role. Right? So I think yes, schema map. I think we've talked about everything. Unless you have any questions, especially from data schema perspective, we will do access control then later.
No, I'm good, Alok.
Good. Just talking recording today.